Keith Tanner here from Flyin Miata, and today we're going to be talking about forged wheels. You've probably heard a lot about forged wheels. You see it in marketing all the time, and I'm going to explain what the heck it is and why you might want forged wheels, the downsides, the advantages, etc. So before we get started, just to let you know, if you have any questions while we're shooting this video, while we're live, please put them in the comments. We will do our best to answer them right away. If you are watching this in the future on YouTube, please put your questions in the comments. We do read all the comments. We will answer them as best we can. So yeah, please, your interaction makes this so much more interesting for everybody. And along those same lines, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, that you like our channel. It helps us because it helps drive traffic towards us, which helps us make more of this sort of content. That way you also find out when we're going to be delivering new stuff, not just live videos, but also product videos, that sort of thing that we release over the course of the weeks. So everybody wins. So, forged versus cast versus flow-formed wheels. There's a bunch of different technologies out there used to make wheels. Specifically, we're going to be talking about forging today and what's different about it and why you might be interested in forged wheels. And yes, of course, Flyin Miata does sell forged wheels for the Miata. They are light, they are strong, they are guaranteed for life. I'll get to all of that. That's them in front of me because, of course, I mean, that's how we pay the bills, right? We sell parts. So there you go, cool parts. So, most OE wheels, the wheels that came on your Miata from the factory, most of them are simply cast. They're low pressure cast or they're gravity cast. And that is, they just make a mold and they pour molten aluminum into the mold, or they push it in under low pressure and then it pops out of the mold, they do the final work, and there you go. It's a very quick way to make wheels. It's a decent way to make them work, but it's got some drawbacks. And I'm not a metallurgist, but I'm going to get a little bit into the metallurgy of how things work. Metals are made effectively of crystals. They have grain in them. There's lots of little crystals, crystalline structure inside the metal. And when you do a cast wheel, there's no order to those grains, to those structure. It's almost like pouring gravel into a mold. If you can think of those grains as being gravel, you just got this random collection of grains going in all sorts of different directions. So they don't really hook together that well. They're not as strong, basically, as if they were more organized. So that's the downside to cast wheels. You don't have that organization of the grain. There's also the chance you can get some porosity, which is little air bubbles, little voids in the wheel. Not necessarily huge ones. I mean, obviously, big holes are a problem, but little ones. And you can get into problems with the strength of the wheel there because those are places where failures will start. So that's the advantage. That's why you see a lot of cast wheels. They're inexpensive, they're easy to make. Because of the grain structure and because of the porosity of them, they're not as strong. So you have to put more material into them to get the same level of strength. And now you end up with a heavier wheel. So that's the flip side. Inexpensive, quick, easy to make basically, but not as strong and heavier. Because of that grain structure, if they do take a hit, if you hit a pothole, you hit a curb, if they take an impact, they're more likely to crack than they are to bend because they just shear along the lines of those of the grain structure, and there's nothing to basically hold it together. So that's the downside. What forging is it basically takes a slug of aluminum, heats it up, and then they force it into a mold under extremely high pressure. Millions of pounds per square inch of pressure, insanely high levels of pressure to sort of squeeze the aluminum into the shape which you want it to be, the shape of a wheel. And then you take that blank out of the die or the mold, and then you machine it. You do the final work so it has all the shape you're looking for, and there you go. So you can imagine this is not the sort of thing you're going to do in your backyard. You need some fairly significant machinery to do this. The machining takes a while as well. You can take, I think Forgeline says they take something like 50 or 60 pounds of material off their wheel when they're machining them. It's going to depend on the size of the wheel. So obviously high effort and expensive, but what's the advantage? The advantage is that grain structure. The process of forcing all of that aluminum into its new shape under really high pressure aligns the grains, and effectively, it's almost like the grain in a tree. You don't have a bunch of disorganized stuff. You've got the grains running, following the shape of the actual wheel itself. That makes it very strong. You can use significantly less material because of this, because of the extra strength. You can use less material, which basically means a lighter wheel. And that strength is really, really good. I mean, obviously, if you're building a lightweight racing wheel, that's extremely important. The grain structure also means that its ductility is better. It basically, if it takes a hit, it's going to bend instead of cracking. So if you are on the racetrack, if you are on the road, you hit a big pothole, you might bend your wheel, but it will probably hold its shape. It'll get you back to the pits, it'll get you back home. It won't immediately pressurize. It's not going to blow a hole right in the side of the wheel. I don't have any cracked wheels on hand to show you. We have had them in the past. We had a customer who was coming to see us one time and hit a rock on I-70 and blew an enormous hole in the barrel of the rim on his wheel. And forged wheels generally would take more of a dent when they're doing that. Not a comfortable thing, obviously, but in terms of survivability, it's a much better choice. There is a medium, there's a middle ground in between these two, and it's called flow forming. And flow forming is, it gets given different names, sometimes rotary forging, which is an example of using an engineering term for marketing purposes because it's not forging. But what that is the basic shape of the wheel is cast, but it's maybe only about this wide. They only sort of cast it a little bit out of shape, and then they'll effectively heat up the rim of the wheel. A lot of people call wheels rims, but they're not. The rim is part of a wheel, or we'll call it the barrel if you want. They'll heat up the barrel and they'll squeeze it into shape using rollers basically and heat. And you're effectively reorganizing the grain of the barrel when you do that. So you end up with some of the benefits of a forged wheel because of that improved grain structure that's going on in the barrel without the cost of full forging. The downside is that the center is still just cast. So you still have weak points on the spokes, for example. We have seen on some Miata wheels in the past where the strength calculations weren't quite there for durability, and you started seeing cracks in the spokes. In worst case scenario, basically they would tear all the way around here, and then your rim comes off your spokes and, well, bad day. So it's a good middle ground, and our Kogeki wheels, I'm gonna grab one here. The Kogeki wheels that we sell for all Miatas, we have these in 15x7 all the way up to 17x9. They are made that way. They have the flow-formed outer edge or outer barrel with the cast center, which is, like I said, it's a great way to get a reasonably strong wheel at a reasonable weight at an affordable price. So that's why you see a lot of these. But if you're looking for the best, put this down without making a huge noise. There we go. If you're looking for the best, if you're looking for the strongest you can get, you're looking for the lightest you can get, you're going to go to forging. And so that's what these Tobus are. These are our Tobu wheels. They're primarily an ND fitment, 17x8. These two are 17x9s. They will fit an NA or NB if you run them with a 10mm spacer. So they are available for all Miatas except for the NC. I apologize, NC people. And they are the lightest wheel we sell. They are about 10% lighter, about 1.5 pounds lighter than the Kogeki of the same size. They are strong enough that they actually have a limited lifetime warranty on the structure, even on track use. If you hit a curb really hard, that unfortunately is not covered, but it is covered against things like cracking about the wheel effectively wearing out on track or on the street. We also, and we do this with all of our wheels, to make sure that they're strong enough to last and to survive what you're going to do with them, we design them for a little bit of a higher load than is typical for Miata wheels. These are rated for 550 kilograms as opposed to the usual 500. So they are considerably stronger. I mean, that's only 10% higher, but it means a lot more strength. So you can run sticky tires without worry about tearing out the center of your wheel, about worry about cracking, and still have, you know, a 15.5 pound 17x9 wheel. This thing is lighter than the factory 17x7s, even though it's 2 inches wider because of that forging. So it's a beautiful thing. They come in 3 different colors. The downside to forging is, unfortunately, the cost. These are a little bit more than twice as expensive as the Kogekis in the same size, which, well, if you only buy them once, not that big a deal, I suppose. If you don't break a set of wheels and have to buy replacements, then you end up about the same. But they're very light, which is great for unsprung weight, rotating mass, and of course, nice and strong, and they look great. You can see them on the car behind me if Travis wants to come over and have a look. This is a set of the 17x8s, I believe. Nines. These are 17x9s with probably a 235 on them. Yep, there we go. This is Travis's car in case you hadn't figured it out. So, great looking wheel, huge amount of space for brake clearance. You can see this has one of our Wheelwood Little Big brake kits, and there's enough room to like lose a mouse in there between the back of the spoke and the wheel. So it's got a lot of room for bigger brakes as well. And that's something that is allowed by the forging process because we don't need as much material to get the same strength. We can leave more space. We can make it a little more skeletal. Do we have any questions going on there, Mike?
Yeah.
What are your questions, Mike?
They are revolving around use cases. So if you're ready to talk more about using the wheels and
So, when would you want these wheels?
yeah.
So track use is usually, the question is about basically the use case. When are you going to justify? You want help justifying yourself a set of expensive wheels. I get it. You're certainly not going to hurt a set of forged wheels. You can't have too much strength in your wheels running around on the street. So you're certainly not going to hurt anything by running a set of these things on street wheels, as we have seen in Travis's case. But where you're most likely to want them, where you're most likely to see forged wheels in use is in hard track situations. Because track wheels see a lot more stress than street wheels do. The cornering loads are obviously higher, especially if you're running sticky tires, you're running Hoosiers, or you're even running the latest 200 treadwear Magic gumballs. You can put a lot of side load through these things. And that's the sort of thing that will eventually start causing wear, causing cracking, basically. Not wear, that's the wrong term. But the wheels will start aging around the spokes. You'll start seeing cracking, and you'll have to replace the wheels. Wheels are usually viewed as a consumable by track people. Not so much for single-use impacts, but they just start developing cracks over time, and the forged wheels will resist that far longer, and of course these ones are guaranteed for life against that. So if they do crack, they'll get replaced. Again, cracked from hard use. If you go and take that big red berm right on the inside of turn 6 at Laguna Seca, the wheel color in there, that one's on you. Don't hit that thing. Just as a general rule, don't hit that thing. So the Kogekis that we have, the flow formed, are perfectly acceptable for street use. They work just fine on track use as well. But again, if you're chasing the best possible, you want the lightest wheel you can get, you want the strongest wheel you can get, that's when you're going to go to forged. Track people love them. Street people don't mind having the best. It might be a little over the top, but better too strong than too weak. Mike, you have your hand up.
Are there downsides to using tow booths on the street?
Are there downsides to using tow booths on the street? Well, if someone knows what they are, they might want them for themselves. These are more likely to get stolen, I would say, than a set of Kogekis simply because they are such a good wheel. There really aren't any downsides to running these things on the street. The only real downside is the buy-in cost. They are more expensive. That is the nature of forged wheels. But this is the sort of wheel that Porsche, the 911 GT3, for example, comes on forged wheels for the same sort of reason: strength, lightweight, durability. And that's what we're looking for. There's no downside to using that in the street. You really can't have wheels that are too strong for street use. You're not relying on them to bend on you for some other reason. And if you do hit a huge pothole, well, I mean, you'd rather have them bend than crack, because that way they keep their air mostly. So it's actually kind of a benefit. Anything else, Mike?
That kind of covers the majority of the questions about use case and whether it's appropriate for street cars.
Okay. So that apparently covers most of the questions we have out there right now. Like I said at the beginning of this video, if you do have questions about application, about street use, about track use, that sort of thing, about why are they different, what's going on with the grain structure, that sort of thing, then please do put them in the comment. We will do our best to answer them. A lot of what I've said, I started off talking about forging in general, apply to all forged wheels. And then, of course, I've talked about some of the benefits that we have used to create the Tobu forged wheel for the Miata. Yes, Mike?
Actually, there is a good one in here. In relation to these comparing to stock wheels, could you draw a little bit of comparison there?
The question is the comparison between these and stock wheels.
Yeah, construction strength, that kind of stuff.
As I mentioned near the beginning, most stock wheels are cast, low pressure cast, gravity cast, I'm not sure which, but they are cast wheels, which means they have to be heavier for a given strength. Factory wheels also tend to be narrower. Mazda's never put a 9-inch wide wheel on a Miata from the factory. On the NC, or on the ND, which is what these particular wheels are made for, 17 by 7 is what most of them are. So these are lighter than the factory wheels, but 2 inches wider, allowing you to put a lot more rubber on. So you get the benefits of both lighter weight and better traction, the benefits of a wider tire, without some of the drawbacks of throwing a whole bunch of unsprung rotating mass on the car and getting the car feeling sort of lead-footed by having all that weight. So there's the advantage over factory. I mean, usually people replace wheels for a couple of reasons. One is fashion, 100% get it. But another one is simply that just the factory wheels are not the size they need to be for the intended use, and that's where these come in. Mike?
What's the warranty on these guys?
The warranty on these guys, I'm starting to go in circles here because I have talked about the warranty. The warranty on these is, I think it's 90 days on the finish, and it's a limited lifetime warranty on the structure. The limited part is basically if you slam yourself into a curb, that is not covered by warranty, but regular use, even including track use, they are covered structurally against cracking and against failing. So it is, and that is for the original purchaser. So if you bought a secondhand set of Toba wheels, they're as strong as they were when we gave them to you, but unfortunately the warranty no longer applies. One thing I will mention is that the warranty does specifically say that when you use them with wheel spacers, the warranty is void, and that is Titan 7, who is the manufacturer of these wheels for us. That is them covering themselves against really off-book applications, making sure you're not using them on something way too heavy, you're not using it on something that is far outside their design goals. On an NA and MB Miata, it's not a problem. You can use them with the 10mm spacer, it will not void your warranty because it is still being used for the intended purpose. So we are updating the website on that one right now. You actually might see some conflicting information. I think Brandon's working on it as we speak. But yeah, these do have a lifetime warranty. These are basically your last set of track wheels that you need to buy. So that makes them actually a pretty good deal if you're going to be running on the track for a while. Anything else over there, Mike?
Here's a good nerdy one.
A nerdy one.
Yeah, with the difference in unsprung and rotational mass, is there a measurable difference in acceleration and corner G-forces compared to a heavier factory?
Okay, so the question is basically the effects of decreasing unsprung and rotating mass. And wouldn't you know, we did a whole video on that a few months ago. I would, instead of rehashing that whole video now, I would point you to that. What's that?
We'll link it.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the comments, and when you see this video on YouTube, it'll be in the description. Basically, it has a marginal effect on acceleration because the wheels, even with the rotating the flywheel effect, are a very small percentage of what you're trying to accelerate, but they have a big effect on the feel of the car, the steering response, how well the wheels and the tires follow the road, so that you keep your rubber on the road more because there's just less mass moving around. Whole bunch of interesting stuff. There's a whole video on that. I highly recommend you go check it out. Okay, so I'm going to call that good for today. Again, if you do have any more questions in the future, put them in the comments. If you like this kind of stuff, make sure to like our channel, subscribe, follow, you know, all the usual social media stuff. Basically, it lets you know when we're doing more good content. We try to put good content out there all the time. If you have ideas for stuff you'd like us to cover, throw those in the comments as well, or send us an email at Flyin Miata, support@flyinmiata.com. We're always interested to hear what you want to learn about, because then we get to help you make your Miata a better car, which is kind of the whole point of this whole thing. So that's it for today. Thanks for your attention. My name is Keith Tanner.